Brace yourselves. It is upon us. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and good night. It's 6:35 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Tuesday, October 12th, 2022. Good morning, Discorditopia. No, that one doesn't work. I'm trying to find a replacement. Work with me here. Good morning, post-modern, post-Trumptopia. Good morning, Bluetopia. Wait, hold on. I have to pronounce morning correctly. Good morning, Divisiontopia. It is I, your eccentric yet humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Good morning, Echo Chambertopia? No, that's just too many. That's too many beats. Good morning. Good morning, Ideological Chambertopia. The 2022 election cycle, Cometh. Brace yourselves, it's already surging like some sort of 11th wave of some virulent disease we cannot get rid of. DJ Zed starting off our morning session with a delightful lo-fi guitar beats remix live track, which was performed live to tape for you, no post editing on this one. Underneath the Moon, Smashing Nightmares. DJ Zed, wrap it up for us and let's kickstart this show. The almost daily ZenCast and its various multi-themed subsegments are a production of C-Tag Studios, a totally fictional production studio that exists only in my mind. This show is brought to you now by our first totally made-up sponsor, the almost daily variety gaming live stream Twitch show. More on that later. Put a pin on the corkboard. Welcome to the show, folks. It is I, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. And how's about that government shutdown cliffhanger? Oh, I need a cricket noise sound effect right here on this button. Cricket, cricket, cricket. Did you guys even catch that? Like for the last fortnight, and no, I don't mean the video game. For the last period of time, antiquatedly referred to as a fortnight, see Shakespeare, I'm fairly certain he made that up. He made up a lot of words and terminologies that previous to his penning did not exist. But I digress. For the past fortnight, dear old Uncle Joe and that turtle-faced MacGuffin in Congress. No offense, that guy's he just looks like a turtle, like a constipated turtle that's looking for its shell. And I usually refuse to lower myself to that kind of comedy, but oh god, he just speaks and in such a weird, lethargic way. And then what's up with his lips and his hands turning purple every 3 weeks? Is he some sort of cyclical moonlight monster? What's up with that? Does he have some sort of disease that he's not telling the American public about? Can he get checked out? Because it grosses me out whenever he's like turning purple on TV. But that's neither here nor there. I didn't mean to get so snarky. I apologize. I'm excited about other things beyond the scope of politics. So I'm eager to get through this episode. How are you, dear audience? Please come on by to the official Facebook page. Not the fishbowl for the show. We don't have a fishbowl in this show. We do have a weed bowl in this show, but that's another issue. Neither here nor there. We'll put a pin in that. Talk about it later. Come on down to the official Facebook page for the Almost Daily ZenCast and be part of the community. Share your thoughts, your comments, your questions, your concerns to be read in upcoming episodes. Okay, so the government was on the verge of shutting down once again vis-a-vis this mechanics of government shutdown melodrama, which have become quite normalized in our contemporary post. I'm trying to figure out like when. I think George Bush Sr. It's like from that presidency on, like this government cliffhanger of will we shut it down because we can't agree to keep paying for the stuff, just seems to escalate in its popularity, in its common occurrence. But most definitely, by the time we got into Obama, this government shutdown cliffhanger melodrama thing got a little weaponized. And now here we are. It's so passé that the media didn't even overhype it. I mean, yes, they talked about it. Yes, it was a thing. But they didn't overhype it. People weren't freaking out as much as they were, when it started happening 20-some-odd years ago. Well, not that it's never happened before then, so don't misconstrue my statements. I just mean the escalation of it, like the seemingly fractal recursion of it occurring more and more often. But needless to say, the can got kicked down the road. If there's one thing the duopoly is good at, if there's one thing the bitter rival party, two-party system can actually achieve nowadays, besides creating American discord, and no, I don't mean the video game Sidekick app for communications. I mean the actual, tangible, energetic, disruptive force. If there's one thing that the two parties can do is kick some bullshit down the road a bit and hope the American people forget, and or stop worrying about it. So I'm not entirely clear how far down the road, but I know that it's not past the end of the year. So brace yourselves. There will be more government shutdown shenanigans before the end of the year. And all of this is prelude, dare I say preamble, even sort of like the previously on moment, the live happening in our faces previously on moment to the 2022 election cycle episode. It's already, like I said, it's already surging, it's already building. The persistence of Trumptopian big lie rationalization from sitting politicians is persistent. It is happening precisely because they think They are convinced that this tactic, that leaning into Trump's madness, is the winning tactic to ensure that the right-wing Christian nation Trumpopian mutation of the GOP, because it is no longer the party it used to be. And it was a flawed and redonkulous party to begin with, long before Trump, lifelong Democrat, let us never forget, switched sides and joined them. Because he saw it ripe for the plucking. He has truly infiltrated and ransacked the grand old party. Not that I personally ever thought it was all that grand. And it's not even really all that old, not in terms of origin stories and roots into the American founding fathers era. No, it has not been around that long. That's one of the mystique mythological things about the GOP. They like to pretend that they've been around since George Washington carved his own teeth out of ivory, which he did not do. Those were slave people's teeth extracted from their heads in his little chatterbox teeth inserts, whatever you call those. What do you call those? Dentures. But I digress. Dear friends, as the double-barreled ideological vice grip of echo chambering ramps up its efforts to rip this country into further tatters vis-a-vis the irreconcilable political conflict that it is generating, all those that are clear-eyed must take a stand. We can't tear down the system, right? As appealing as that is, I do not stand on that side of the line. I reject revolutionary violence. I reject any kind of inciting of tactical action against one's own countrymen, right? In either direction, from either side. I also reject the fear-mongering that's going on. It astounds me how many people are so ideologically entrenched that they cannot see how similar the two parties sound once you take away all of the self-aggrandizing reasons why that party is the righteous and true party, right? Once you focus on the mechanics of division, you start to realize that both parties, they are not equal, but they are similarly corrupt, right? Don't get sidetracked. I'm not trying to say they are the same. They are behaving in completely, almost diametrically opposed ways, of course. There's no denying that. But they are both pretending to be virtuous and true and unnecessarily, inhumanely, and immorally vilifying and oversimplifying the case against the oppositional party. Whether you're on the right or the left, that statement is valid and consistent and is observably, measurably, confirmably so since at least, if not further back, Ronald Reagan's first term in office. The parties, by design, are conflict-creating treadmills of distraction, in my humble opinion, right? The system of self-governance is not some monolith of corruption. I'm that crazy guy, right? It is a complex, redonkulous, for sure. I'm not skirting away from that one. It's a redonkulously complex, absurd human endeavor that is indeed riddled with massive threads of corruption stemming from both sides, dare I say, because for any one of the two parties of this redonkulous duopoly to pretend that they are truly, virtuously free of all corruption is the most naive, self-undermining, self-abusive, toxic, let me just put some blinders on for myself, ideological construct to cling to. Neither party is righteously superior to the other. In fact, if you take a big step back and look at the patterns of history and the patterns of the facts on the ground, the actions taken by people both in power and in the base of both parties, you'll see that they function in a way that mirrors each other. Once you strip away all the things, like, it's easy to focus on the differences. But there's an ancient saying, right? Focus on the similarities. That will bring you some insight. Because when it's intrapersonal, when it's about us versus them, if you focus on the similarities, you can transcend the engineered wedge issue dividing us from them. When you're analyzing power structures or human endeavors, corporations, entities, etc., and you focus on the similarities, you can find the trends wherein you can transcend the illusion of conflict, when, especially in politics, and you can hone in on the ways in which they function similarly and go, you can start questioning, why is that? Both parties, both sides of the ideological spectrum are riddled with various forms of corruption that are originating from multitudes of sources. Now, we can spend forever debating the various conspiracy theories about the root origin, or we can transcend ideological conceptualizations of where that root origin of corruption is, and we can focus on the universal thing that unifies all corruption. And therefore, tackle it at a level where we aren't just putting out little fires or sticking our thumbs in, individual holes in the dam. Sorry for the mixed metaphor. For those of you who've never listened to a single moment of this podcast, let me get right to the heart, the beating, bleeding heart of it. The problems that we face in the reality that we all co-create together are rooted in an origin or a source that is deeper, transcendentally more simple and yet more complex than any given human group, endeavor, entity, corporation, cabal. Okay? While I don't deny that there are nexuses of power and human groups of various kinds endeavoring to coalesce and or fight each other for that power, sure. Of course that's going on. But if you want to get to root causes, dear friends, and I invite you humbly, all those of you who are new to the show and checking out this as your first, second, or third episode, take a deep dive. Join me in a retrospective look over the last 5 years of political, ideological shenanigans, and investigate my real-time analysis and see if whether or not, my theory or thesis makes sense. Division is at the core of whatever is going on, right? Set aside the worst-case scenario of the fear-mongering. As you scan the landscape of potential explanations, whether they are conspiracy theory-oriented or not, there's something that the vast plurality of humanity is not not taking a look at, not taking into consideration, not investigating thoroughly enough. And that's that the root cause of these problems does not reside in one individual or one particular group of people with nefarious intent. Yes, those individuals and those groups of people are probably out there doing horrible things. But the root cause of all this corruption, dare I say it, friends, stems from a transcendental spiritual place. And place is not even the best word. The root cause of the corruptions and the suffering and the insanity and the hatred and the isms and the violence and the conflict that we see in the world around us originate deep within. The human species is not as simple and as two-dimensional as the materialist philosophies would have us think. There are strata, layers, depths, profound depths of almost incomprehensible spiritual functioning. Let me coin a term. There is spiritual architecture in the world that our eyeballs cannot see, but that we have nuanced ways of communing with. And the root cause of all the evil in the world, the root cause of all the corruption in the world, the root cause of all the absurd, ridiculous, ego-maniacal, sociopathic, Trumpopian thinking in the world does not come from Trump. We can't blame Trump for all that, right? He's just a product of his own symptomology. The disease originates in the spiritual dimensions. And this is something that pop culture, generally speaking, with some rare exceptions, is not particularly capable of comprehending, processing, understanding, wrapping its brain around, talking about clearly, and comprehending in a meaningful way. And I identify pop culture as a sociological phenomenon, right? As a collective means by which we process our popular cultural discourse, which is usually fixated on spurious, fluffy, nonsensical things. Pop culture is not exactly looked to as the depths of the heights of intellectual prowess necessarily. But I digress. There are cultural collective phenomena that we nominally understand. We have a surface sort of understanding of, but that are involved with, that are extensions of, that are part of these deeper spiritual functionings, these deeper spiritual architectural modalities, right? Our collective consciousness operates in many at many levels, in many modalities. And politics is designed to short-circuit the fuse and rewire our collective and individual thinking to propagate conflict, to engage in distractionary treadmills of endless argumentation, instead of coming to terms with the spiritual tools that we have long neglected. And as we've spent 5 years discussing, as I have spent 5 years discussing, I wasn't trying to get snotty with, I wasn't trying to be a snob with the use of the royal we. I meant like as if we, the audience, and I have been sharing a discussion, a public discourse engagement for the last 5 years. If we ever truly want to solve racism, sexism, ageism, any of the conflict-oriented, hate-based isms, if we really want to solve political idolatry, if we really want to solve religious zealotry, if we really want to solve the problem of human beings getting wrapped up in man-made ideological nonsense and then letting themselves be pushed to emotional, verbal, intellectual, and physical violence because of those ideological constructs, if we ever hope to transcend all that bullshit, we have to engage on two fronts, in my humble opinion. We have to engage in the political discourse of the moment and make a stand for unifying around healing politically, healing intellectually, healing emotionally, healing spiritually, as a matter of political discussion. Why? I'm not trying to conflate, and please don't accuse me of trying to be one of those people that is trying to merge religion with politics. I believe in the separation of church and state, right? Let's respect that boundary. Let's let religion do what religion does, but let's be very clear about something. Spirituality is not an organized religion, and anyone treating it as such is either being misled or trying to mislead people, in my humble opinion. Spirituality is like self-care, quote unquote, right? Spirituality is like self-love and the love of others. Spirituality is an organic, and I said an organic, not inorganic, right? Like it is a very organic, natural, occurring phenomenological relationship with the self. How's about that for a sort of post-New Age, mind-bending definition for what spirituality can, could, should, would, ought to be? Might very well actually be, and yet we just keep missing the mark, right? As some astute observers of the spiritual pop cultural movement have pointed out, it cannot be all love and light and good vibes only all the time. That doesn't mean those choices are invalid, dear friends. I see you guys calling out the love and light all the time flaw. There is a flaw to that. If one clings to that permanently and attempts to bottle up, reject, ignore, block out, or in any other way, shape, or form, refuse to deal with the darkness, the shadow, the corruption, the pain, the trauma, that which needs healing, then how the bloody hell are we ever going to achieve any healing? Right, friends? So, while I'm not trying to discourage people from focusing on love and light, sometimes those are exactly the lifesavers you need to reach for. Because conversely, if you're nothing but a cynical, negative Nancy Downer, party pooper of a wet towel, self-undermining, self-deprecating, self-loathing, sort of everything sucks kind of rabbit hole, sinkhole of, you're just going to get into a place of depression. You can't deny the interaction, the collaboration between the light and the dark. They are inherently mutually co-creating. And that's one of the problems that we have politically. Politically, in our real world, supposedly critical thinking, intellectual discourse, we quite absurdly, quite unfairly, quite, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a phrase I'm looking for. Not unjust, unfairly, sort of insincerely and untruthfully, we falsely divide things into pure evil and absolute light. According to Donald Trump and his blind faith fanatics that believe in him, Donald Trump is God's chosen warrior, and everyone else is pure satanic garbage, right? Now, Any clear-eyed, rational thinker on the sidelines of that debate clearly can understand that that statement is nonsense. Donald Trump is not the divinely chosen golden one sent directly from God to fix it all himself. What did he fix? Hardly anything. Although he did do a few things I can't disagree with, because on the face of them, they were decent things to do. He also did a shit ton of crazy things. He also failed to do a bunch of things that he could have done. But I digress. Every politician does that. Every politician says they're going to fight for the little guy, and then mostly does things that benefit corporate billionaires and oligarchs. Why is that? Because hashtag 2 wings, 1 bird, folks. This political dichotomy, this false argument that one party is pure evil and the other party is righteous, figure out which one's which, stems from a very similar spiritual corruption. My tribe is righteous. My tribe is God's chosen people, and all else can go fuck off and die and go to hell, right? That shit is ancient. That shit is false. That shit is manipulative as fuck. And we must transcend it. That's why I say we must bring an acknowledgement of the spiritual pain and suffering and trauma that must be attended to and healed into our political discourse. Politicians don't want to deal with genuine spiritual issues, even as they two-facedly play a tug of war that they like to call the war for the soul of America. The soul of America needs healing. The soul of America needs genuine growth. The soul of America needs transcendent metaphysical work. As in, like, I need to work on myself. America, you need to work on yourself. As a collective whole and as a community of individuals. And I don't mean just the bad guys, quote unquote, in America. Because who are they? Depends on who you ask. Depends on which political spectrum people are filtering their worldview through. I mean everybody. And it's not just America, folks. My spiritual theosophy applies to the world as a global community of communities. Whichever community you find yourself in, it is our individual and collective spiritual calling to turn inwards, to hold ourselves accountable, to hold each other accountable. And I don't mean with guillotines, because the moment you start murdering people for being murderers, you become a murderer yourself, and someone has to murder you. Eye for an eye, whole world blind. Hello. But accountable to the spiritual work. That's the kind of accountability I'm talking about. Yes, it would be great to see Trump and his sycophants held accountable politically by losing elections. Yes, it would be quite satisfying to see Donald Trump be held accountable criminally by being indicted, taking to trial, and hopefully, knock on wood, going to jail. That would be brilliant. But more important than either of those things, if we want to put an end to this vicious cycle of us versus them, right versus left, left versus right, endless ideological scapegoating, distractionary conflict, treadmills of fighting and hating each other, if we want to transcend that and truly unite as a community of neighbors, a community of fellow country persons, countrymen and women. I don't know what the best way to updraft that term is, but We're all neighbors here. And if you take a big step back, biologically speaking, we're all family on this effing planet. And if you want to take a transcendental metaphysical perspective, we are all one in this cosmos. There is one being all of us. I recently saw a meme that addressed that. It's two people awkwardly hugging, and there's like this face of I don't know what, rapture, awe, surprise on the one person you can see, who's because the other person's face is away from the camera, but they're hugging. If I can remember, the caption of the meme is basically, when I finally realized that everyone else out there is another me in many different bodies. Is that crazy? I don't know, man. To many people, that is something you just knee-jerk respond to, like, fucking new age, crazy, nut job, woo-woo nonsense. But postmodern quantum mechanical physics and the sane aspects of historical metaphysics and the verifiable aspects of ancient indigenous spiritual practices clearly lead us to a metaphysical conclusion. We have always been each other, trapped in different bodies. If we can wrap our brains, our analytical, ego-driven brains around that, and we can turn inwards to identify our quota, our individual burden of the spiritual trauma that we all collectively share, progress towards transcendent unification will escalate exponentially, friends. The more you meditate, the more you look within, using whatever technique works for you, given that it is causing no harm and isn't trying to brainwash you into some crazy indoctrination. Barring that your technique clears those problematic issues, then it doesn't really matter what technique. You wanna sit like Zazen? Great. You wanna do yoga? Great. You wanna just jog until enlightened? Do it. As Alan Watts pointed out quite astutely, almost any repetitive, rhythmic, mundane action can be done so mindfully as to become meditative in nature. Because it's about disengaging that sense of control that we artificially try to impose on our own thoughts and our own bodies, and observing how the inner dimensions of our beings actually work. Don't take my word for it, folks. Go check it out. This has been today's snappy and under 45 minutes episode of the Almost Daily ZenCast. Finally reaching my goals, getting the show to a nice, tight level. Programming note, I'll be coming back in the not-too-distant future to do a special crossover simulcast presentation of the Almost Daily ZenCast, which will be streamed live on both Sprecher.com and Twitch.tv. Yes, folks, I'm finally bringing the show up to the video modality by adding live stream Twitch TV broadcasting functionality to the show. And that's because someone encouraged me to check out Twitch again, because I'd been sort of just going, I don't get it, avoiding it and thinking, I don't know what to do about it. And I thought it was an American version of TikTok. Obviously, I mean, one could say that, but it's also, I'm not even sure if it's based in America, so never mind that issue. But Twitch is what Twitch is. And my eyes have been opened, and there will now be a companion episodic, real, raw, radically unscripted entertainment product available for you over there on twitchtv.com/Mr. Zeppo, the almost daily variety gaming live stream show. So come on over after filling your head with deep, probative questions about the universe, our political system, and how we can transcend our own self-destruction. Unwind, relax, and enjoy a little bit of mindless fun with video games galore. I have been your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo, sitting here with DJ Zed, the animatronic DJ from another timeline. And this has been the Almost Daily ZenCast. Until next time, folks, may peace, love, and grieviness blossom in your heart. Please support this and all my other creative endeavors by visiting solo.to/Mr. Zeppo.